I'm going to call the meeting to order. All those that can, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God. Before we get rolling here, I want to remind everybody that has a microphone in front of them. Keep it close to your mouth. Hear yourself in the speakers and you should be all right. All right, so the next item, roll call, please.
All board members are present.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve, Salvia.
Support. Moved and supported. Vote please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Frederick?
Yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia?
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next item is the consent agenda. We have a motion to approve as presented.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support. Moved and supported. Vote please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Cooper, yes.
Ms. Frederick?
Yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia?
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Emma, yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next item, announcements and information. The Highland Township offices will be closed on Thursday, July 4th and Friday, July 5th in observance of Independence Day. We having a crash and burn here. Household hazardous waste collection day is Saturday, June 15th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. That'll be held here right at the Township Hall. Entrance will come in from the west end of Livingston off of M59. There'll be no access off of John Street, only for exit. The Highland Red, White, and Blues Festival will be on June 29th, 2024. Farmers Market will be every Saturday beginning June 22nd at the Highland Township building. It'll be out in front of the building here. Sounds like summer concert series begins July 9th at 7 p.m. in Veterans Park. Okay, the next item I have is public comment, and I'm going to ask if there's going to be discussion about the gas station, that if everybody is going to be repeating the same points and topics as have been evidenced by the letters and comments we've received, that maybe you pick a spokesperson and have the spokesperson come forward. I'm not going to deny anybody, but you know, the 3 minutes for each statement. So if somebody wants to make a public comment on anything at this point in time, come forward to the stand, push the button, the mic will light up, and there you go.
Peter Worthman, 3845 Chevron Drive. With all the news in the paper, what is the situation of Highland relative to GFL and priority waste removal?
That's a good question. I was going to give an answer to that anyway. So the answer is that GFL has sold its residential services business to Priority Waste. Priority Waste is not going to take over until July 1st. And it looks like we're probably going to have Hiccupville here for the next remainder of June. They're going to do their best. They've promised to do everything they can to do it. When they made the choice to sell the business, a lot of employees were talked to by Priority and they moved already. So they're not servicing us. And so they're short-handed, short-vehicled, and they're doing what they can do. So there's no sense in us trying to smack them up or do anything like that, because it's not going to get us anywhere.
But priority is going to take over Highland Waste.
At this moment, yes. So that'll be the next step. Otherwise, we'd have to go out and look for contracts and we'll have to see what they come up with. So we don't have any other information.
Okay.
Believe it or not. Just that more people found out about stuff before we ever heard. I got a call this morning on it. That's how soon I found out. So, I mean, from the actual mouth of the GFL people. So,
Okay, just want to know. Thank
all
you.
right, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else?
Returning this.
You're on. There you go.
My name is Donna Hubbard, 1556 Pruitt Drive in Highland. I'm on the Board of Trustees for Harvey Lake Estate Subdivision. And we know that this is not a final vote, and we know that there's lots of things to be done, but every time one more item comes up, it's a lot more questions. So now we're talking about on the agenda for this meeting, an additional gas station. So here we go again down the road. For us, it's a question of location. It's a question of how it affects homeowners in the area. We have concerns about the fumes, the water, but in the letter from Beth Corwin today, the one that just, or I guess it's on, where is it? Yeah, okay, it's for today's agenda. The Beth Corwin put something out that really threw me. And it talks about the Huron Valley School District receiving notice. They were also approached regarding feedback, and they have offered no specific concerns. As a 30-year employee of the district, I couldn't imagine that nobody would even respond to any of this from the school district. So I talked with several people. Most told me they knew nothing about it. And there's a comment down here in Beth's second page that reads, the 1,000-foot setback from gas stations set forth in public comment comes from a US EPA document meant to guide school districts in gaining meaningful public input in evaluating new school siting alternatives. It recommends consideration of mitigation measures such as enhanced landscaping or engineering controls such as indoor air filtration at this distance. So to us, that says there's a recognizable problem. And I was down at that intersection today as school got out. There are buses, there are pedestrians, there are parent traffic. It is a busy intersection and it does not have multiple lanes of traffic. That, along with our concern with groundwater and the location to those railroad tracks, we are going to fight this until we can't fight anymore, because this is not a good location for that station, especially now that we're talking about putting another one in M59 and Milford Road. We don't need that station at that location. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have any comment? All right. We'll move on to the subject at hand. So, this is, was postponed from last, month. This is a request to approve, for a special use permit, for a gas station. URSA 24-01 vacant North Milford Road, property identification number 11-15-326-017. So the reason for the postponement was to have an opportunity to look into some of the questions that were put forth and concerns, and those I think were discussed in the letter that Beth put together. And so it's up to the board now to decide what direction to head here. So anybody like to entertain a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion Move to grant special approval of land use for a gas station for parcel 11-15-326-017, vacant north corner of North Milford Road and East Wardlow Road for applicant Samuel Roth, property owner RIMA Properties LLC, as recommended by the Planning Commission following their public hearing on March 21st, 2024 and April 4th, 2024. Subject to the following conditions. Hours of operation limited to 5 AM to 12 midnight. Negotiation of increased liability insurance or other provisions in the development agreement as may be necessary to protect public interest. And final review of site plan by the Planning Commission, generally consistent with conceptual plan submitted with a special use permit application.
Okay, do we have support for that? Any support? I'll support. Discussion?
This property is currently master planned and zoned for a gas station with a special use approval. It's in a light industrial commercial district. We have standards for special land use. And it seems to meet those, in my opinion.
Any other discussion? Not from the public.
I have one question. And maybe you don't know the answer to this, but the hours of operation on Milford Road, this gas station down here, is that 9 o'clock? Is it? No. The one on
The Shell station?
yeah. Because it's always closed by 9 o'clock. So is that just choice of the owner?
Yeah.
Okay,
Mobile station on 59 is usually closed by midnight.
okay. I didn't know if there was different times for different
I don't know
gas
about-
stations or not.
East Highland, I have no idea of hours in that one, but
Thank you. Just something that came in.
okay, any other comments?
Question about the water. There's reference to potentially extending the water system to up to that intersection. Are we committed to that as a way to assuage concerns about this water?
I think it's a good idea. It's the board would have to make that commitment. There would have to be an SAD put together to pay for it. I do know of several property owners there that would be willing to pitch in. I mean, they would be looking for water. It would be a good way to alleviate any reason for concern on the groundwater at that location. That's not going to put the water to the subdivision. So,
But the Milford Road happens.
yeah, I think that would be something that, and there's also the condominiums to the north that are in a bind as well. And they are no longer available to share the water from the trailer park, which they've been doing. So they've had to be looking at a well. So that would be a good application for that as well. So it'd be up to the board to decide whether they want to make that move or not. Beth?
Yes. Actually, my concern about it is safety related. I know that intersection is an extremely busy intersection. I go that way all the time. And there've been several instances where there've been pedestrians going across that I have hardly seen because of the way the intersection is laid out. So I would just be curious if any improvements were going to be made in that intersection in general, maybe to improve pedestrian safety, crosswalk, something, because I think that could be a dangerous intersection with, more traffic pulling out and out, out, especially for kids that are in the area.
Beth, you want any comment on that?
As part of the driveway review for a new development, the road commission looks at trip generation and the factors surrounding, what the history of the intersection is. And they could require turn lanes, impose turn restrictions. They're the ones that'll determine the geometry of that intersection and the driveways.
Any other comments, questions?
Did the state of Michigan have any comments overall? The state of Michigan have any comments on the road conditions, et cetera?
The state hasn't had an opportunity to review anything here. It's local county jurisdiction on the roads. The state's involvement will be, you'll have involvement with the environmental Great Lakes and energy about the underground storage tank. LARA will be involved in the registration of the underground storage tanks. And MDARD will be involved in the consumer protection surrounding the operation of a gas station. So you'll have multiple state agencies involved. But at this point, you're just a concept. They don't have anything to react to yet.
Okay, any other comments? All right, I understand the concerns of the individuals that dislike the opportunity for that, but what we have is we have an owner of a piece of property that has met the requirements to be able to move forward with the special use for approval for a gas station, convenience store. And Planning Commission has agreed to that it was met all the requirements, and it's up to the board now to make a decision whether they want to allow it to move forward. And I personally feel that we'll have that opportunity as a board to make that decision. So, okay, any other comments?
I have one. I've had more phone calls on this issue than I've ever had on any issue that's come before the board before. And I understand where the planning commission is coming from. I understand that the ball's definitely in our court. I also understand that I represent the citizens of Highland Township. And so in that note, with the concerns, and I understand the concerns, I'm gonna have to vote no on this.
Okay, we'll have to wait for the vote on that, but all right. Okay, so I guess on that note, let's vote.
Just a comment there. If you're going to entertain a no vote, there will have to be the standards of review and approval. So you might want to look at those now before you form your decision. I think distribute them. They're in a page that says 6.03H. Oh, okay.
That's pass that way.
This is a special use, so the zoning ordinance sets forth
Oh, you want me to read that out loud? Okay, this is the standards for special land use. Is that what you're talking about? Okay, the township board shall approve the proposed special land use if it is determined to be in compliance with the standards and requirements of this ordinance and the standards for site plan approval listed in section 5.04. Now, the language says the township board shall approve the proposed special land use if these fall true. So all special land uses shall be designed, located, planned, and operated so that the public health, safety, and welfare will be protected.
Rick, you might want to posit each one of the findings and discuss each one of the findings individually before you form your votes. I'll go get copies for everybody if you'd like.
I guess I don't understand what you're saying here.
Each of those standards, you should probably consider, what your response is to it. So you should pause at each standard and see if there's any comments that the board would like to make at that.
So does it meet this? Does it meet this?
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, so stop at one and let, all special land use. Okay, plan operates.
Okay, say in each of these cases, the planning commission, in a 5-2 vote, agreed that these were met. So. Here's one. Okay, so. I think one of the, from that standpoint, the design requirements for the gas station have to meet pretty strict state standards and designs. In order for the owner operator to even get the approval from the state in the first place. It's located in an appropriately zoned district. The concept and drawings will be planned and operated so that the public health, safety, and welfare will be protected. So the gas tanks and stuff should be installed in a way to protect from spills. It'll be up to the planning commission to review the final designs in order to approve and proof that those elements are involved. And I know that people believe that there's going to be a gas spill and it's going to pollute the water, and it's conjecture as much as it is reality. I mean, the reality is if it happens, and the conjecture is that it might happen. I do want to make a comment at this point, though, and I really didn't want to get involved in this, but one of the things that's been left out of this conversation is something that many of the people in the subdivision are involved in. Here, there's a couple of things that happen on an annual basis and sometimes multiple times during the year. The railroad is one of them. The railroad just sprayed its annual or semi-annual death spray to kill the weeds on the railroad tracks. If you've ever wondered why there's never any weeds, it's because they use a compound that's called 2,4-D, which is highly toxic. And another thing is that I live on Harvey Lake, and every year I request that chemicals do not get put in the water. And every year somebody pays for it. I don't pay for it. But these chemicals go into that lake every year. They accumulate. They also go directly downstream into the Huron River system. The city of Ann Arbor drinks that water, and so do many other communities. So to be an alarmist about benzene in the ground, how about thinking about what we're doing on a daily basis or an annual basis to our own drinking water? And when we dump our drugs down our septic tank that we don't use and the chemicals we put in our septic tank, you enter that directly into the water stream. So think hard about that. Each one of you are doing something that as an aggregate is probably as bad or worse than what you're afraid of. And so I'm not voting in a way or trying to say this in a way that I don't have some feeling for how you feel. I do get it. But at the same token, it seems to be kind of a strange way to look at it when we have two things right on your side of the tracks, if you want to call it that you guys are doing and the railroad's doing. And it's blatant. I mean, it's toxifying. So I don't like it. What's that? Oh, yeah. In fact, I took some pictures of it today because I've been accessing the railroad to do a project. So if you, I don't want to add any of that. I'm just saying that, think about that as a process. If you want to hammer a gas station for potential benzene, think about what you're doing yourself too. So anyways, we'll move on. Okay, so second item is all special land uses shall be compatible and harmonious with the surrounding land uses, taking into consideration the size, location, character of the proposed special land use within the context of the surrounding land uses in the master plan. Furthermore, the proposed special land use shall not cause substantial injury to the value of other property in the area to which it is located. One of the most common things that I hear when somebody doesn't like what somebody does next door is it's going to damage my property value. We have watched property values regardless go up and up and up. In most cases, this is very untrue. I mean, if somebody really does something heinous next to you, there are methods of relief from it. But in this case, yes.
So on this one also, it says special land uses shall be compatible and harmonious with the surrounding land uses, taking into consideration site and size. So to the north is also office. To the south is office. And then down the whole strip is in light industrial. So it's in that area.
Meets that requirement.
On the site plan, it shows that the north is office service zoned. It's zoned office. So this gas station is on a property that's zone C1.
Yep. All right. All right. Well. Okay. All right, this conversation is for the board. I appreciate your voice. Well, I don't know, whatever the vote comes up, then you can converse with it if you want, but the vote's the vote. I will say that if you guys want to stop this now, there's a way to do it. Either way, whether it goes or doesn't go, there's a way to do that. And that is, there's probably at least 100 people that have expressed a dislike for it. Only up some money and offer the property owner the money, buy it and take it right off the market and eliminate it ever happen. It's as realistic as anything else. I mean, this gentleman owns the property. You guys don't want him to do what he would like to do with this property. And the net result is you can stop it right away by buying it from him. That's correct. We changed it. No. Wait, hold on. That's the end of the conversation on this part. Once again, this isn't public comment. I know it's ticking you off. You'd like to come up here and strangle somebody, but Government also says you can install gas stations. No, no, no. All right, well, anyways, we're moving on. Next item is the proposed special land use shall be in general agreement with the master plan designation for the area where the use is proposed. It does meet that requirement. All special land uses, number 4, shall provide facilities for safe and convenient vehicular and pedestrian traffic, including but not limited to turning movements, traffic flow, proximity, relationships to intersections, adequacy of sight distances, location and access of off-street parking, and provisions for pedestrian traffic. That'll be required by the Planning Commission and also by the RCOC before he can complete his project or complete his design work. Number 5, all special land uses shall be designed, constructed, and operated in a manner that prevents detrimental impacts to surrounding properties, such as noise, dust, fumes, smoke, air, water, odor, light, and or vibration, etc. The special land use shall be designed, constructed, and operated in a manner that does not detract from area aesthetics. It's a structure that would fall pretty much in line with the other buildings along the industrial zone there. There'll be control systems for dust, noise, fumes, smoke, air, water, odor, light. Those will be requirements. And with the working with the individual, then the planning commission can help keep the design aesthetics in keeping with the rest of the community. So number 6, the proposed special land use shall not unreasonably burden the capacity of public services and or facilities. Okay, so at this point, there are no public services or meaning sewers and water and so on, that this would unreasonably burden. Number 7, the proposed special land use shall comply with any specific standards set forth in Article 10, supplemental use regulations that are applicable to the use. Beth, you want to respond to that?
There isn't a special requirement in section 10 for fueling stations, I believe. So there just isn't anything extra applicable here. What you find is when you look at the full analysis of these factors by the Planning Commission, they were confident that given the state overview of the underground tanks and the things that were technically beyond our ability to oversee and regulate on a effective level, that those were covered by the state, that the issues of surrounding traffic and that were covered by the county, and that the things like lighting, signage and landscaping, we had effective standards in place, and those would apply to any commercial use anyway. So those types of the issues surrounding the gas station convenience store did not strike them as much different than any other use in the C1 district. So it really came down to trusting that the state was going to give adequate oversight of the things specific to the fueling, and that the county would be an effective advocate for the traffic.
Okay, question for our attorney. The statement starting in 6.03H, standard for special land use. The township board shall approve if these standards are met. According to our planning commission, these standards were met.
Well,
Put it closer to your mouth.
the planning commission made that determination as a board. And it's your job now to apply these same standards and determine if you agree with the planning commission and whether or not you believe these standards have been met. What's important to note with approval or denial, you do have to run through these factors in your analysis, which you've done. And if you were to approve or deny, you're going to want to articulate the basis for approving and denying based on these standards. I hope that I answered your question.
Kind of puts us in a pickle. But yes,
Beth, could you speak more about the air quality, what you found?
There's a few studies that were referenced, but in the materials that the public have submitted to you. One was the US EPA citing for the schools. Another on the US EPA's website is a study about benzene concentrations associated with single gas stations and clusters of gas stations. We're talking about a single gas station here. The school citing standard doesn't try to say that it's made any conclusion at all about the benzene in the air. It says, if you don't have any other sites that are acceptable to the public other than one that's near certain factors, start looking at these mitigating factors. And one of them was gas stations. So it's not a scientific 1,000's good and the 500's bad and 300's horrible. It's just a recommendation when to start looking at those kinds of considerations. The study on the website of the EPA website about benzene concentrations was a scientific study. And it was looking at, there's a often published standard of 300 feet as an adequate separation from a school facility to a gas station. And through a sort of a rigorous mathematical model, they said, as long as you're 500 feet, then the incidence of cancer from a single gas station is a potential 3 deaths in a million from cancer, or 3 cancer cases in a million of people who are consistently exposed to the benzene concentrations that might come from a gas station. But it also takes into effect there's other things like the topography and the landscaping and the direction of the wind flow and all that. It doesn't say that at 500 feet, it's like a horrible thing. It says this is where the incidence of cancer is noticeably different at 500 feet. Is a school, would you consider that to be a routine exposure, like a constant exposure? I mean, they're looking at things like office buildings and all kinds of other land uses, not necessarily schools. So some of the other studies that were referenced in some of the other materials that I read talked about, you know, the potential for the chemicals to get soak into the gas, into the concrete pad and then travel beyond the site. They're all inconclusive. So there's not like a super hard science here that we can poke at and say, there's our smoking gun and this is why we can say no. So it's everybody's level of comfort. One death of a kid's too much, but it doesn't, it's not a causation thing that you can say, you put a gas station here, a kid's gonna die. So take from it what you want.
Joe?
I have a question. I heard a comment that we have already had a gas station permitted. I thought we were voting on an ordinance to make that happen. Right now, we do not have a gas station permit in place. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So tonight, we're trying to see if we want to vote on the ordinance to do that. So it does not affect.
Mr. Salvia, we're talking about two different zoning districts. The ordinance that's later in the agenda is specifically deals with the Highland Station zoning district, which is bounded right now by M59 to not quite Calisani's. It's basically in this general neighborhood where we're sitting. There are gas stations allowed in other districts. In the C2 district, it's a use allowed by right. If you're in the C2 district and you want a gas station, you just get a site plan approval. In the C1 district, it requires this level of extra level scrutiny to make sure that these standards that we discussed are met. You wouldn't necessarily, every C1 parcel may not be appropriate for a gas station. No, the one that's coming behind is for a different part of the
Use
township.
the microphone, please.
So the ordinance Z031 is not relevant to this parcel?
Not this parcel.
Mr. Supervisor? I
Yes.
just had another quick question. I'm just a little, I don't know, confused in a sense. So let me just reiterate what I think I heard about this. So are we, basically dictated to vote a certain way if all these conditions have been met, or can we still use our best judgment and vote how we feel we should vote?
That's correct.
So it could be either.
Mrs. Lewis, what the attorney was trying to explain is that if you're going to vote that you don't think one of these is met, if you're going to vote no, you're saying one of these is not met, and then you have to articulate.
He's asking if we meet all of.
Yes, the only reason you wouldn't approve it is because you think one of these standards is not met. So you have to tie your reason for saying no to one of these standards.
So, that even makes me more confused because I've always been under the impression that there's more to everything than just what's written in black and white. I mean, you know what, I think Mrs. Cooper brought up a really good point, and it really made me think is that, yes, you know, we have to adhere to all the guidelines and to all the rules and regulations, but we're here for the township and for the residents, and we still have to honor what they feel when we have a whole huge group like this that feels very strongly about something. I feel, you know, like we can't just dismiss it and say we have to, you know, adhere to everything here on the list and vote a certain way. And it kind of removes, you know, the process of voting, in my opinion, period. If we can't vote according to our convictions, then it has to be just a yes vote.
I think though, if you really stop to think about what's your reasoning, if your gut's telling you no, then you're gonna find one of these standards isn't met. Your job is to figure out which standard that is and articulate why you're saying no. You can't just say no because your gut feels the answer is no. You need a reason to say no. And these standards are there to guide you. So choose something on this page that you are using as your logic to vote no.
On that note, I have a question. So number 6, the proposed special land use shall not unreasonably burden the capacity of public services and or facilities. It has to be a public service that we can't be considering individual wells and septic fields.
That's generally speaking to things like your police and fire services. If you did have sewer and water, if you provided a DPW kind of thing, then it was going to create a headache for the DPW. It's talking about the public things.
I have several concerns that aren't on this list, but the one thing that does sort of venture this direction is about the water. If the strip mall and the elementary school are gonna have to upgrade their wells, that doesn't seem fair to me. You know, I don't know if there's a way that we can build something in to make sure that they're taken care of.
You think they will have to upgrade their well if a gas station goes in?
If the next time their well goes out, they'll have to
The
put in
next
a
time
high-
their well goes out, yeah.
higher level
Yeah.
well.
Okay, they don't have to automatically replace it. It's the next time the well fails.
That's what I think.
If there's public services.
If there isn't public services. If there is water,
Then they have to hook up the water.
as they will if we pursue the water project there.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right, so everybody understands the thing at hand here, and as I reiterate, the planning commission did probably do a better job of going through this than we have at this point, describing it, but they went through all of these elements, and their proposal or to put forth to the township board was that they approved the special use. So. Yep, 5-2 vote. Okay, so. Anybody have? Remember, as the attorney said, that do you have to pick a particular thing out of here that, and you're gonna have to describe why you feel that item is,
If I recall correctly, the motion on the table was to approve and you made
Yeah.
the motion
Right.
because you believed all the factors were met.
right,
And if this fails and somebody else can make a motion, but it does need to articulate which of these factors they feel wasn't met.
okay, you understand that? All right, so. I guess at this point, we'll call for a vote.
Ms. Frederick.
Yes.
Clerk Flowers votes no. Mr. Salvia.
No,
Mrs. Lewis.
No.
Mr. Howe.
No.
Mrs. Cooper.
No,
Mr. Hamel.
Yes,
Motion doesn't carry.
what's that? Hold on. Now, each individual has to
No, the motion failed.
fail, okay,
So no decision's been made. So if you want to make a decision today, another motion needs to be made and the reasons need to be articulated.
Which that's the reason why you went through the exercise of looking at the factors before you voted.
I'm gonna make a motion that we once again postpone to give the opportunity for each individual that voted no to define in detail which items were a reason for failure. Postpone the table to a later date or whatever the correct words are.
I can do it right now.
I make a motion.
There's a motion on the table.
Table this.
I need a second on a motion to. The motion was to table until a later date. Or postpone to a later date. And to give each one of the individuals that voted no, the opportunity to write down which items of these 7 were not met and their reasons for it.
I support the motion to postpone to allow the board members significant time to prepare a written statement as to their objection to any of those items.
I see a head shake over there. What?
Okay, so the motion has now been made and seconded. So at this point, unless they're withdrawn, you should vote on those.
Right,
But the reason for the postponement, as I understood it, Supervisor, was so that the board members now understanding the factors that need to be analyzed can analyze those factors. It's
exactly.
not just about putting anything in writing. It's about coming back to discuss the factors.
Yeah, well, if you put it in writing, then you've got your answers in detail, because right now they'd have to specifically say why it doesn't meet it. I think it's an opportunity to, I mean, it was voted no, voted down. It wasn't, the motion was voted down. It doesn't mean that it was denied. This is an opportunity for the board. Those that said no, because of the requirements, somebody's gonna have to say what one or two or three or all of those did the applicant not meet. So,
Mr. Supervisor,
yes,
I'll make a comment, please. Say nothing yet, but two things bother, two things bother me. This whole process thing does a little bit. And just getting the sheet tonight, that was it's not in our packet, as far as I know. I did peruse it, so I didn't see it. And it's just we really put on the spot here, not realizing that I believe in what Judy and what Beth said, that I was under the understanding that we can vote the way we want to vote on this stuff, which is going to anger some and satisfies others. But then we're throwing this, the curveball came in at the last minute, and it was pretty difficult now we're going through all this stuff and it's riling people up and whatever. I get it, but it's very hard for us, for me personally. I'm ready to explain now why I voted no at this point. But I'm just saying that this is the hardest part here, is this came in so late, and it's like, we should have been, when we first walked in tonight, say, hey, you gotta look this over beforehand or whatever, but it's frustrating to me, and I don't know where that word got lost in the chain of command, but it kind of puts us, the four of us anyways, because we're not in-house officials. I didn't realize we had to do it this way until I sat down here, so it's very frustrating on that part, and so that's all.
okay, so we're gonna vote on the motion. It was seconded. We'll postpone it. I'm gonna actually, I hate to do this, but I'm gonna put this out. We'll bring it back up next month. So can we postpone it till the July meeting, whatever that date is. So have a vote, please.
Question? So
Yes.
what's expected of us then before the ones that voted no? You're expecting something in writing, or do we come back, or what is the
When
plan?
you
of
come
attack?
back,
What's the plan of attack here?
you will have to explain to the public why these 7 items are not met. 1 of 7 or all of 7, or it's required that all 7 are met in order for it to work. So that's what you'll have to explain. So you have to think about this from a completely, I have to say, I wasn't really prepared myself for this. Board shall approve. But that's the language. Shall is have to, if these items are all met. So you guys that voted no are going to have to explain why the next time we bring this up, you voted no. And that is going to have to be based on qualifications for some of these. That means it takes the emotional component and throws it out the door. And so that's the hard part about this stuff.
Hey, all I ever asked for is guidance. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. And I don't disagree. This has been probably one of the hardest things we've ever had to do. So I'm not jumping up and down. So any other discussion? If not, then we'll vote. And the vote is to postpone till July, whatever that date is.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia.
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Howe.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Mrs. Frederick.
No.
Mr. Hamel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. The saga continues. So. And I apologize if I made myself sound like it was chastising the people in the audience, but I'm not. I'm just stating that if you're gonna be looking at talking about contaminations and that type of thing, we have to think about what we're doing as a whole. And there's standards of acceptance for gas stations as well. So that's what we have to work on. So thank you for putting up with us. See you next month, I guess. So and it doesn't mean that you can't send in any kind of information you want to send in to. We'll take it. Well, there's actually been multiple public comments allowed on this process to begin with. And that's what they were for, is to be specific to that item. So that's why the public comment is, you can say whatever you want to say, but after we go through the process of the other things, the next meeting, there's opportunity for public comment. Yep. So, all right. Thank you. Next item. Where'd it go? Is new business. And that's the introduction of text amendment to permit gas stations for parcels fronting Highland Road, M59 in the Highland Station Business District to establish regulations regarding the same.
I make a motion to introduce Z031 text amendment to permit gas stations for parcels fronting Highland Road, M59 in the Highland Station Business District and to establish regulations regarding same.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Any discussion? Joe, you had some questions, I think, that you were wondering about this.
What is significantly different than what we have now?
The situation is that Highland Station zoning district, when it was established, did not allow for gas stations in the Highland Station zoning district. And it actually didn't come to anybody's attention until we got some people interested in doing something with the gas station property. And or the old lumberyard property. Well, it turns out that what they want to do there is put in a Sheetz convenience store, restaurant, gas station. And you can't do it without the proper ordinance. So we have to modify the Highland Station zoning district to allow for gas stations.
Can I add something to that, Rick?
Yeah.
The ordinance for the Highland Station District was written early on in the development of this Highland Station concept as a zoning district. They had a charrette and brought in some architects from Minnesota and other places after this ordinance was already in place. One of the things they identified was that the parcels that face M59 are highway oriented and really need a different acceptable use list. You're not going to get pedestrian traffic there. And we never got around to the activity of reviewing the use list and coming up with any uses that were highway oriented for those couple of parcels that are up on 59. They still will have to maintain the character and flavor of the Highland Station District, but they're really meant to draw people to stop at the Highland Station District, and maybe they'll come on in.
Question, Beth. So what year was that, or when was that all written? What we talking time frame wise for the Highland Station?
I think this ordinance was originally like in 2006, and they had that charrette in like 2008.
Okay,
I'm
so
looking on the dates.
So after the Marathon gas station was in on the corner that was,
Yeah, the mayor
that was.
had already been identified as coming down and if you look at all that use list, it's very small pedestrian oriented stuff. So
So my question is though about no gas stations in the Highland Station area. Marathon, when was that Marathon? I remember stopping there a few times years ago. When was that built?
I believe that one of the members of the public said that he worked for the state in 2003. And that's when they identified the escape of product and the whole thing kind of closed down then about 2003.
So the Highland, I'm slow, sorry, but so the Highland Station ordinance was written after that.
Right.
No, so I,
The gas station was already defunct. We just didn't have a gas station.
okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I shared the same concern about the Marathon Station as to, is that still an existing ordinance for that station area, that land?
No, it's not an existing ordinance. This is the ordinance that allows for that.
What exists for that Marathon property?
Currently, if you look at that parcel, it's considered a vacant parcel. And if you don't adopt this, it could be a barber shop, a little service oriented things. Pedestrian scale service oriented uses. That's what's in place for the Highland Station right now. That site has been remediated. That's why we brought the water across from the north side of 59 and made it possible that we could extend the water service on the south side of 59. It's considered a closed site, although it'll be monitored probably forever.
So the point of this exercise here is that if you want those parcels to stay exactly like they are, then don't rezone it. Don't change the zoning. Because they will most likely never get developed unless there's a sewer. And I don't know how that's going to be possible in my lifetime. So we had a motion and a second on that, right?
What is the old Marathon currently zoned? Is that Highland?
It's Highland Station.
Okay.
Now across on the north side, you can put gas stations over there. Because it's zoned for that. Yeah. So it was something that was done, by planners thinking that they were going to come up with some other concept, and nobody's ever come up with a concept in 20 years. And we get an awful lot of comments about when you're going to get rid of that piece of junk, and it's not up to us to get rid of it. It's up to some developer who happens to own the property to find a use for it. And in this case, that's what's come up. It's a restaurant, convenience store, gas station. But in order to do so, we have to modify the zoning, Highland Station zoning, to allow for it. And it's on M59 frontage, not anywhere else in the Highland Station zoning.
And this is the introduction. This isn't calling for a decision tonight. This is just an introduction.
Okay.
So if you have questions about it, now's a good time to ask, but.
So that ordinance may be subject to some of the checklists that we have on this in sense.
No, it's a different process altogether. This is just an ordinance. The features of this piece of ordinance, what we're changing is we're expanding the use list so that you could ask for a gas station under a special use on this site, on either of the sites, any of the sites that front M59. It's allowing a relaxation of some signage so that if you're on 59, your signage can be vehicle oriented more than pedestrian oriented. It's setting in some canopy restrictions there. Everything else is totally covered by the ordinance and regulations that are already in place for a Highland Station property. If somebody wanted to come in on those pieces and still do something that was already in the use list, they're welcome to do so just with a simple site plan.
Okay. So essentially we fulfilled the first reading.
Thank you, Beth.
We need
And,
we need to vote to introduce it.
What's that?
Don't we need to vote to introduce this? We need a vote.
Yes.
Okay. Are we ready?
Yep.
All right, Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes?
Mrs. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Howe.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Cooper, yes.
Miss Frederick.
Yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Hamel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Gun shy on gas stations. Okay, resolution, next item is resolution 24 -19, approving purchase of property from Six Rivers Land Conservancy. This item is a couple years ago. Township Board approved to move forward with a purchase of a piece of property on approximately 60 acres on Hickory Ridge Road. And the thing we wanted to have happen that did not happen. That was that the Michigan DNR grant from the gasoline grants, what do they call that thing? MDLA or that, something like that. Michigan National Trust Fund grant, which is from gas and oil leases. And they put together a large, they invest this money and then each year they dole out money to applicants for these parcels. The past 3 years, actually, the interest rates were ridiculous. They didn't have, ridiculously low. They didn't have returns on their investments. They were limited to a percentage of the total amount of money invested. And in each case, 2 years in a row, I applied for this grant, and the funding was insufficient to meet our request, which was for, I believe, $400,000. And so we were denied the grant both times. So in this case, we have to fulfill the purchase with Six Rivers Land Conservancy, which had purchased it. We were leasing it from them, and that's the only way you could apply for these grants. So at this time, now what we need to do is to give the supervisor the right to sign the agreement. So
I would move to approve resolution 24-21, approving the purchase of property from Six Rivers Land Conservancy and authorize the supervisor to sign all paperwork.
Support.
Documents.
It says 24-19 on here, but on
21.
here it does, but maybe it's
Oh,
wrong.
it's
Okay,
21 on here.
moved and supported. What's that? All right. Error in the agenda, not on the resolution. All right. Any discussion on that? If not,
Can you talk a little bit about your timeline for development of this park?
timeline. At this point in time, the intent is to keep this an open space. Nothing will happen to this probably within the next couple of years. In the meantime, the intent is to allow the farmer that has for years been farming it to continue to do so. So it keeps crops on the land, keeps the land maintained. And after that, then the use will be for low impact. This will not be playgrounds. It'll not be heavy vehicle traffic of any kind. It's a perfect place for a large outdoor dog park, which has loads of people have been requesting. Instead of using our baseball diamonds for dog runs, which the baseball players don't appreciate very much because they step in that stuff. But it has a lot of use for that. And then over time, we'll just have to develop a schematic for it. But at this time, the intent is to maintain the open space, which will help keep that rural atmosphere that we're trying to keep. If we let that go, that'll be developed into homes and probably faster than you could say boo. So that's the intent.
What's the timeline?
Timeline?
Yes.
I said a couple of years. What are you expecting? Microphone.
5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I don't know.
I don't know that I could say in 5 years there'll be, or less, there'll be activity there. But there's some other projects to complete before we start that. All right,
Comment?
sure.
So I know we are required by this purchase agreement to go through with this and purchase this property. We tried twice to get the grant. I think it's a lot of money for a parcel we're going to have to maintain in the future. But I realize that we do have to complete this part of it because we've already signed a purchase agreement.
All right. Now,
Question, should we then have a timeline on some action on this? No? Okay.
well, here's the thing. When we agreed to purchase this, there was the knowledge that you may not get the grant. And everybody agreed to it. That was an agreement. That was out in the open, full bore. So when we agreed to this, we agreed we would purchase it. Now, if we purchase it with MDNR money, that's one thing. But there's also something that happens with that, is that purchasing it with that grant money puts us in a position just like Duck Lake and Hickory Ridge. We have to maintain them as they were designed and built. That means that if all of the impact that Duck Lake has, the asphalt's failing, we just did pickleball courts and basketball courts. We can't just tear them out and do away with them. You have to replace them. This is a park where you're not going to have that type of infrastructure. There's going to be a demand like these other parks that would, and you also can't sell it if you have the grant money. If you sell it, you have to give the money back for the grant. So there's a kind of there's a dark side to it and a good side to it. The dark side is that you are committed to something in a way that you have a lot less choices on what to do. Maybe someday down the road, a board decides that we don't need that open space. You can't get rid of it if you had the grant. And the grant would just purchase it. It would not pay for any additional stuff. So it just would purchase it. So you're kind of in the same shoe, so this allows for some future board, if they feel that the land is of no value to the public as an open space, then subdivide it and build on it. That's not my choice, but we made the choice to purchase it. So now this is the commitment stage, tried 2 years in a row. We actually hired professionals to put together the program to supposedly get this grant, but when there is not the money there, you're not going to get it. And there were hundreds of grants that were requested that were a lot larger than what we had that got no money. So it's not uncommon to not get that. And one of the weird things about it was that you would think that what they're trying to do is hopefully maintain some open space. That's the purpose of the parks. And a lot of times the parks are big. But a lot of the requests come in with a whole bunch of infrastructure requests. And one of the things that they were actually looking at was, well, we're kind of not interested. We don't, if you're asking us to put up money for pickleball courts, they're not interested in that right now. They're looking for other things, pathways, spaces for people to be able to physically recreate, but not necessarily, have motorcycles or mountain bike trails or that type of thing necessarily, but it perfectly fit that. But there were people, and there is a huge bias for the north. I mean, Traverse City and that area up there just sucks up that money. And they have huge parcels of land that people, the families want to donate or sell, and most of the cases it's sell. And so they get the communities to go after these grants to buy these large open spaces. And so you're competing against some pretty heavy projects. There's projects, and one of the things that I lobbied hard for was Southeast Michigan rarely gets grants for open land. And one of the ironies of it is that you're rapidly losing these things. There was an opportunity down in Birmingham where a beautiful piece of land that was, I think it was 9 or 10 acres, would have kept a really beautiful open space. And they put in requests for this money and they didn't get the grant. And what happened is somebody came along and bought it. And now there's condos in there. It was a natural river that went through it and a beautiful piece of land that should have been kept open. And another one was there's a farm down there that was a large orchard. And they were trying to get that preserved. And that's all built now. So it's a shame to see that the only place for open space is to the north, when we need to be, which many of you here have repeated over and over, as well as myself. Ironically, the only way you can keep land open is when the government owns it, because it's not for sale. When you have large tracts of land and you hope your family's going to keep it open, go a couple generations and then see what the value of the land is. It'll be parted into as small as possible parcels. So that's what happens. That's what's happening to our east and to our west. And this is just one way to try and we've got parks in 4 quadrants. And this was one of the things recommended by our Parks Committee when we had one, was to have a park in each quadrant. And this was the opportunity. So it may or may not happen, but as far as I'm concerned, it's open land and we need to keep it open. And this is a good opportunity. The township can own it at a later date. We're not encumbered by the state in any way, and we can change our minds if we want to change them later. So any other questions? Vote on this, please.
Mrs. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Ms. Frederick,
Yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mr. Hamel,
Yes,
motion carries.
thank you. Thank you, folks. Okay, next item is motion to, someone want to make a motion for the budget amendment?
I would move to approve the budget amendment as presented.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Ms. Frederick,
Yes.
All right, Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Hamel,
Hamel, yes.
motion carries.
Okay, next item is Steeple Hall exterior painting. We put out requests for proposals on this project. How many bids was there? 5 or 6, somewhere in there. And the lowest bid was Dietrich Painting. And the way that we organized this bid was that we had everybody bid on exactly the same thing. Brand of paint, everything. And it was not based on, like, the tower part was a separate option, and people could put an option to bid on that. So even with those requirements, Dietrich Painting came in at 26,886, which was just two. There was one of those 2,000 more than that, and there was one as much as 93,000. So one of the added options was to replace missing cedar shake shingles, clean wash, and seal the bell tower. And that was for $5,782. It seems a shame to go through all the work to paint the building and then leave the bell tower unattended. So the project total is $32,668.
I move to approve Dietrich Painting to complete the exterior painting and repairs with the added option of the bell tower at Steeple Hall located at 205 West Livingston Road, Highland, Michigan, for a total of not to do we need any extra in there?
No, I don't think so.
Not to exceed the quoted $32,668. No budget amendment is needed.
Support.
And approve the supervisor to sign.
I need to make and approve the supervisor to sign all related contracts.
Support.
Okay. Any questions, discussion? Cassie, do you recall or do you have any information? It seems that painting price is the same price we paid 10 years ago. So sorry.
So I did question Ron Dietrich on why the prices stayed where they were from the original bid that was when the project was completed approximately 10 years ago. And he stated that because it was done 10 years ago and we're kind of doing maintenance at this point, like we can keep within it. So as long as we keep maintaining that property, only one coat of paint's going to be required instead of 2 like it was the last time, and things like that. So those variables are really important with that property.
All right. Thank you. All right. Vote please.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Ms. Frederick,
Yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Hamel,
Hamel, yes.
motion carries.
So I don't know who's actually looked, but since we purchased and tore down the home on 146 John Street behind Steeple Hall, we now have a new gravel parking lot that is going to be a major asset for the use of that building, because before there was hardly any place to park a car. And it really makes a difference too, I think, in the neighborhood. The house was not a historical piece, be cobbled together, but I think that what we did do with that home and with that project, I think was a really good thing for the homeowner. And I don't know how many knew it, but Mrs. Jameson, who was living there, was very ill, and she was aware that she was going to have to probably be put in a home. So they put the house up for sale. And one of the things that came of that was that I looked at the property and I thought, well, maybe what we should do is talk to her and see if she'd be willing to work with the township on purchasing the property. But the rationale behind it was to give her a place where she could live out her life. So what we did was she gave us a price on the property that was less than what she was asking. She didn't have to move, and she did live her life out there. And she was very pleased with the fact that she did not have to leave her home. So it was one of those things that I think was really a win-win for everybody. And and the sad part is her son, who was living with her, he passed away not only a few months after that. And so it's kind of like this family thing that we helped them both out, and I think that it was an asset, and it's a thing that can go on living with the community. So it was a good deal. So that was that. I got off track of it, but okay. So did we vote yet or not?
Yeah.
Okay. Next item. That's what I'm going. Okay. The next item, I'm going to have Cassie Blasek come up to the mic. And I'm going to let's see here. How do I get back to my Zoom? Zoom. Share the screen. Hey, Justin.
Yeah, what's up?
Is that image visible on your screen without a bunch of junk in the middle of it?
I've got a train with a dot in the gray and then the little eagle on the upper right.
Okay, but no other imagery in the middle of it.
Nothing else, no.
Okay, so I'm gonna try and I don't know how I can get rid of all this crap. Oh, muted. Not working.
Can I start?
Yeah.
All right,
Go
so
ahead, Cassie. Sorry, this is the way it is.
right now I'm going to be putting on my DDA hat. And as many of you know, I am the design committee chairperson for the DDA. And one of the projects that we've been working on over the last year has been adding an additional mural to the historic Highland Station area, or the district in general. And so we've come together with, we had representatives from neighbors, the Historical Society, the DDA. I can't even remember everybody. Lots of people came to the meeting, and we brainstormed with the artist all sorts of ideas. And we got super excited about what we'd like to see. And everybody had different visions, and we kind of just brainstormed like, this is what we're thinking. And so it kind of got, it's passionate because people are so interested in wanting their ideas to be up there on the screens and on the mural. So I kind of stopped just to kind of give you a rundown, and I said, you know what, let's let the artist create what we don't want to dictate to the artist what we want. We want the artist to come up with something based on what we're defining, what we think Highland is, and what we want to share with the community. So you see what I'm going to describe really quickly is describing what the mural. So we met with him again on Friday when he presented we were just presented with this on Friday, and he explained to us some of the details. So up in the upper left-hand corner, obviously you see an eagle soaring. Obviously that's going to tie some of the nod to Veterans Park. And then you have a train coming in, which ties into our rail history here in the community. Something unique that we want to point out is that he interpreted it in black and white. So it's more of a historical spin on and thinking about what the train imagery means to you. And as it travels through time, it becomes much brighter. And that's why the clock face is on the train. It's moving into the future. So, and then you have the sunlight, and then we're talking about like all of the natural settings of Highland Township with the trees and like a meandering river or like a creek. That's kind of the essence of where it came from. So there's also going to be a quote on here that's not depicted as of the moment, that will actually say preserving the past with a vision for the future. And that's our nod to acknowledging the history we have here in Highland Township and then seeing where we're moving forward to in the future. So this is a very long and thin mural. It's going to go on the east elevation of the 250 West Highland Road, which is now where WODA is running out of, and it's going to face into the park. So it gives people like a huge visual into that park, and it's going to be a great backdrop for what we see the park transforming into with the addition of the new station that will be moved there for stages and the public. So it ties in visually this artistic element to the functional piece of the stage and the performance space. I'd love to think in the future, we've thrown around some other ideas about, you know, a stage and a platform. Directly below the eagle, you'll see a blank spot on the tower. So that would actually be where we're proposing storage space would be for like tables and chairs, furniture, picnics, items like that. All different equipment that we might need out there when we're utilizing the space. So again, the overall hope that the DDA has is that it'll continue to help activate this space, obviously following their master plan and what their overall goals are for the community. Any questions?
You want to explain the, well, I guess I can do it. I'm talking. The train, Eugene Beach and Roscoe Smith were both involved in this project. And Eugene offered up some photographs, or Roscoe did, I'm not sure which one, but both of them came up. That train is very representative of one of the first trains to travel those tracks, which is the Crapo, named after Governor Crapo. So the locomotive was actually named after Governor Crapo, and that'll be the imagery that will show on this. So he'll use this as the guideline, but he'll work that in there. So, and once again, I think looking at the train cars and the water tower in the background being in black and white is a pretty cool thought process. You know, there's the old coming into the new, seeing the future and the brightness and things we can do. So anybody have any questions or comments?
I do want to point out that the reason it wasn't in your booklets is because we did want to keep this a surprise to the public, because we're very excited to launch it as a so we have an event on June 13th with the Detroit Institute of Arts here, which will be actually held in Veterans Park. And we're going to, I think I've invited everyone, but come if you can. And we're going to do from 6 to 8 p.m. We're going to be doing a walking tour of all the art in the community. And then we're actually going to have this artist on site and do a reveal for the public at that time. And he'll be able to answer any questions. And it's just really fun to talk to the person that's actually going to be creating the piece of art. So that's another thing I wanted to share. Thank you.
Is it covering all of the brick?
So that's a great question. So they're going to be like 8-foot panels that we're going to place vertically. And the brickwork is actually about 10 feet. So they'll be mounted more towards the top of the wall. And then the bottom foot or so, we're hoping to have like a platform or some type of stage area there for people that are watching the concerts or at a festival or event to dine up there and have seating is the overall goal.
So the effect is that the platform is to represent the platform at a train station.
Mhm.
Where you would see, like the carts, they move things around with barrels, goods and suitcases or whatever.
It was suggested at the meeting to maybe include barrels, like as furniture and seating that people could stand and use as tables and try to make it more three-dimensional as well.
Right, and then that under the eagle, the intent is to replicate the actual train depot that was down here on Livingston on the railroad tracks, and to take a portion of it that includes the ticket window, and that gets replicated at an obtuse angle coming off the building into the park, and that's the structure that will turn into a storage unit for tables, chairs, things that we need in the park. It also will be the location for all the electricity and any other, like water and whatever you have to have in there to service that park. So it's gonna, and then it'll wrap north and east, and then facing south and along the north edge of the property will be the train station that is down at the park.
I make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the building mural agreement between the Charter Township of Highland, the Highland Downtown Development Authority, and the artist Zach Curtis Artwork.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote please.
Ms. Frederick,
Yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Or yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
Can I want to say one more thing when you're done? I got just an update on something.
Yeah.
I was over, and it's been a few weeks now, but the dugouts are looking really nice. I happened to be driving by one day and they were actually working on them. So I stopped, talked to them for a few minutes, and they look really good. So I gave that money to the Duck Lake Parks or Pines or whatever for the baseball. It's a great addition and they're doing a great job over there. So anyways, if you get a chance to check it out.
And the investment we made in the park, the pickleballers are just going nuts. And they love it. So they're going nuts and driving us nuts and having a good time doing it.
Don't play pickleball.
Missy, would you like to say something? Hit the button. His first event. All right, thank you. Okay, I want to commend the DDA, Missy and Cassie as well, so much for the amount of work that you've done to advance a lot of things in this community. So it has made a big difference. There's a lot of, especially when you're trying to make a change in a downtown area, and we can't affect the real estate because we don't own it. And we don't have a sewer, so we can't get people to come in that would invest in it in a way that could maybe turn it into the visuals that we're hoping to see. But these things help to get people to realize the value of keeping that we have there, the historical pieces that we have there. And that's as critical as anything right now. Maintaining the historical elements is a critical thing. So thank you. I appreciate it. All right. So
And one more thing, Missy, good job with the concerts. They're all lined up as usual. So looking forward to that. So I'll hobble up to the stage and introduce if I can. Yep.
All right. So I got one thing that I want to let the board be aware of. The water problem at Calisani's is solved. And I will tell you that it was solved by the township, not by anybody else. And I spent 12 years picking up where I left off 12 years ago, pumping water across a hill this time instead of the railroad track. So 12 years ago, before I was supervisor, Ken Snook and I stood on the side of the railroad tracks and pumped water across, and the railroad came the next morning after we waved at all the engineers as we pulled the pipe off the railroad. They came out the next day with a giant water pump and their engineers, civil engineers, and said, "Thank you for identifying a potential derailment site." And so what happened is that railroad was put in 1872. There was a 18-inch diameter clay pipe under the railroad tracks. It had collapsed. It's now a 4-foot steel pipe that was put in. But what was never addressed was the east side, the water would go into a kind of a meandering creek, and then it had to go through a hill that had a 12 to 15-foot elevation change. And so I knew that there was a pipe in there, but it was 5 at the lowest point on the west side where the water came from the railroad track. It was 5 feet deep, and it went underneath an oak tree that was this big around. But 152 years ago, that tree wasn't there. And so the pipe had plugged up. I went in there, I dug to the east of the oak tree, found the clay tile. I broke it on purpose. I dug a trench to it to drain the water. It did drain, but not at a speed that was with which the rain would overpower. And so I rented an excavator, and Andy Harrington, my part-time helper, and I got pipe that was donated by Grant Charlock, 100 feet of 18-inch diameter pipe donated. And in 2 days, we put that 100 feet of pipe in. And I wish I could show you pictures of it, but what happened is, who knows how, but they dug this pipe through a 12-foot deep, 12-foot high. So we dug it down, and we had a 10-foot deep trench that pipe went in. And on top of it, and it sits right on top of the old pipe. I actually followed it all the way through, and it kept running the whole time. In the hole where the pipe was were boulders that were this big in diameter. 35 of them followed the pipe. So they had to have hand dug this thing 152 years ago. And they probably hit boulders in this hill because it's like a glacial spill. You know, there were little rocks and stuff. But as I dig along, another boulder, well, I was able to take the boulders and actually create a really nice boulder retaining wall around both ends of the pipe. So it's good for the next 200 years. And so I want to thank the Township Board for letting me do that. What happened was the county could not get the state to talk to them. I went to the state park, talked to the ranger there. I told him we have a disaster waiting to happen, which is the failure of Milford Road. Think about it. How would you get through Highland? And that road is 99% sure it's built on a tamarack log weave, just like Livingston is. It goes through the swamp. That's built on a tamarack log weave. So what it's floating on is 28 feet of peat. And if you pierce that, or you cause it to fail by having it liquefy, you're done. We'll have to have a bridge in there. And you're talking probably $20-30 million worth of ridiculousness. So I went to the ranger. We have a new ranger at the park. I told him what was happening. He came out the same day, looked at it, gave me permission to pump across the hill. And a week later, he got permission from the state to allow us to dig the pipe in. So in 3 weeks, the job's complete. So, and had a good time doing it. So got to the excavator's sitting on the trailer right out there in that truck, so. Going back tomorrow. So on that note,
Great job, Nick, as always. You do a lot of stuff for this township that people don't even realize, and that's a big deal. And it's nice that we're not driving through a flood on Milford Road.
the unfortunate part is that when they put the pipe in. They put the pipe in, I'll give you the last one is. When they put the pipe through, the railroad was required to put it at the level it did by Eagle. Which is a state. No, the new one. So it's too high. It's 1.5 feet too high. So what water you see there now is as low as it's gonna go. But it's not gonna take the road out. So on that note, meeting adjourned. Thank you, Brian, for those comments.